This episode of the Police One podcast is sponsored by Officer Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting officerstore.com. Hey, you're listening to Policing Matters on policeone.com. And you know me, I'm your host, Jim Dudley. Well, if you're listening to the podcast, be sure and check us out on the YouTube channel as well, so you can take a look at our guest. Well, our guest today is Gabrielle Wimer. She is a forensic specialist working for the City of Ventura in California. And Gabrielle has worked in crime scene investigations for 13 years, and she's been a latent print examiner for the past 8 years. And she's an IAI, that's an International Association of Identification crime scene analyst. And she's also the host of her own podcast, The Walls Do Talk. And I've heard it, and it's great. Well, welcome to Policing Matters, Gabrielle Wimer.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today. It's a pleasure meeting you finally.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the pleasure of listening to your podcast, and one of them, I was laughing out loud. You were talking about all of your different cases with various sex toys sprinkled around crime scenes, and let's just leave it at that and let the viewer or the listener go on and listen for themselves. So let's
Yeah.
talk about how you got into the business. In not the podcast business, but in your forensic career. When did you start thinking that investigating grisly crime scenes was on your career path?
Definitely a young age. I loved science, loved mystery, loved all the Nancy Drews and the Clue game, all of that. And then once I got into about middle school, I really understood that I like to, ask the questions and what happens to the body and how do you, put clues together. And I loved science. So middle school into high school, I already knew I was interested in what it's like to see this or driving by a crime scene. I wonder what happened there. And I don't mind seeing a dead body. All those, thoughts and that curiosity was already there. So that's young age. And then hit the ground running after high school, straight into college to study forensics. So it's been my path since a very young age.
And how was it when you saw your first dead body?
Oh my gosh, let me tell you. So I was interning at that time in the cold case homicide unit, and I was preparing to go into the crime scene unit down in Southern California. And I kept telling the sergeant, I need to see a dead body before I get to the crime scene unit because I need to know how I'm going to react. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. We'll get you in somewhere. So they had an autopsy scheduled for one of their victims. She had been pushed off a balcony and she was in the hospital and passed away. So it's homicide. They're scheduling the autopsy. I'm like, great. I get in there. I'm all suited up. They have the district attorneys in there. They have detectives in there. They have the doctor there. And this is a big agency in a big county. So there's a lot of bodies lined up. And so I'm kind of just standing there taking it all in. And I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And I would say about 20 minutes into them preparing to start the autopsy, it just hits me like overwhelming sense of smells and sights, and everything just goes black and I hit the floor. So
Oh,
needless to say, my first dead body, I passed out. I woke up and drank some water. And after that, almost, 14 years later, I'm good. I got it out of my
wow.
system.
Yeah, well, I teach at
But yeah,
university, and I have a lot of students thinking that that this is what they want to be, and then there's your reality check.
yeah. It's just we're not wired to see that. We're not supposed to see the insides and the trauma. But there's some of us, like us crime scene investigators, we are curious. And, we finally realize, oh, we are meant to see this. We're the kind of the select few that can go out and investigate and look at the death and the destruction and be okay with it.
Yeah, and I looked up Ventura. I mean, I've been there, and Ventura is a cool little town in Southern California. And I assumed low crime, but then when I looked it up, holy smokes, what's happening down there?
Right.
It is busier crime wise than I thought. I'm guessing that you and your office is pretty busy.
Yes, definitely. So our crime scene unit, there's just two of us, me and my partner, and they really, hold us just for the major crimes. So the violent crimes, the robberies, sexual assaults, that kind of stuff. Because we do have our fair share. I mean, we do have a beautiful city, a beautiful beach town, beautiful community, but with that comes a nightlife and gang violence and drug use. And so the combination, and yeah, you never know day to day what's going to happen, especially only two of you. Like, you better be ready.
Hmm. So take us through a routine week. What kind of calls would you get called out to?
So routine week, sometimes we get a lot of calls from our officers. They do a great job. They'll call us and ask us like, "Hey, we have these shoe wear impressions here for 459." So meaning like a burglary of a house. We're getting a lot of phone calls. Um, Aside from us being in the office doing our day-to-day, looking at latent prints or maybe processing like a firearm for DNA, we may get called out to a suspicious death. Last week we had 3 call outs. We had one suspicious death, we had another autopsy, and then we had a traffic accident that resulted in a death as well. So you really never know what you're going to get. Autopsy, overdose, person ran over by a vehicle, processing big old shotguns. It's fun.
Fun, she
Needless to
says.
say.
Okay, so walk us through the crime scene. Patrol cops are there. You get called out, you put on your Tyvek suits, you're walking up and you meet with the patrol guy, the detectives, who's telling you what, who's directing you, what are your priorities?
Yeah, definitely. So with our department, I think it's very special. We have a very close knit connection, and we work closely with our detectives for major scenes. So we get the call, whether it's a watch commander or a sergeant, we know that we're responding to maybe someone got shot or stabbed. We arrive on scene, the officers are great. They get there, the detectives get there as well, and we do like a walkthrough. At this point, we go under the yellow tape. They're pointing out everything that they've observed so far, where the body was located, where suspects were located, where items of evidence that they feel are important are located. Kind of do our initial walkthrough. And then at that point, we will sit there, talk with our detectives, give them our game plan, what we think of is important and how we want to process the scene. We make sure that everybody's on the same page as far as what evidence is important. And our detectives are phenomenal because they go, "All right, you girls know what you're doing. You're the experts. Let us know what you need. We're going to step outside the yellow tape and have at it." And so myself and if my partner's there, we start documenting. We're then photographing the crime scene. We're always, in communication, what we think is important, how we want to go ahead and document and grab it or process it there. So it's never ending, this game of processing and communicating and just working as one big team. It's a lot of
Sure.
fun.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're talking about documenting and drawing up your game plan. I can't see you flipping a pad of paper while you're there. I mean, there's so much technology. Back in the day, right, we had our little crime scene logbook and we're drawing out, sketching, measuring. You said you had a camera, which kind of surprised me, but now we've got this technology. I know when we first got Total Station, that was like the game changer, right? And that was 20
Right.
years ago. They're using Faro, and now drones are used for documenting crime scenes, and I'm sure much better than the human can. Uh, how do you keep quality control? Have you ever been second guessed on a stand in a court?
Definitely. So I think like you said right there, what you said is how do we keep quality control? I think the answer is the technology. So before, when it was just up to us, our paper, our sketch pad, or even a total station, like we're standing directly at this area and it's taking the measurement. Now, like you said, we have drones, we have the Faro, which is that 3D scanner. We have takes all the overhead photography. So like, yeah, I still carry my camera. I get to take some pretty cool crime scene photos, capturing images in the moment. But then when you pull out the drone and they do this fly through and they capture this beautiful overhead scenery of the crime scene, when you pull out the scanner and it does a 360 scan of your entire scene. So your jury, your audience, your DA investigators, the defense, it plots measurements. Every 1/8 of an inch, it puts a measurement down in your crime scene. So you're able to recreate this virtual reality, this virtual walkthrough of your crime scene. So when you are on the stand and you are questioned by the defense, which has happened, ma'am, how do you know that it was 20 feet or approximately 21 feet and 3 inches from the front door? I'm like,
Right.
well, because the technology that's um, been analyzed, it's ran through all its testing processes, been validated. That's the measurement that it gained, not just once, but 3 different times. So it's the technology that backs us up that helps mitigate the human error.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I talked to Blake Resnick. I don't know if you know him. He's the Brink drones guy, and he was talking about his technology that if you saw the movie Prometheus, where the guy throws up the balls that just plot out this whole area, that's what his drones are doing now.
Right,
Just
right.
amazing technology. And I'm sure that's pretty impressive on juries as well. So I want to ask you about your podcast, and I want you to take us through a couple of your interesting cases. But first, I want to take a moment and thank our sponsor, Officer Store, equipping protectors with passion. That's how we operate, and it's how we live. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at officerstore.com. And we're back, and I'm speaking with Gabrielle Wimer, forensic specialist working for the City of Ventura and host of the podcast called The Walls Do Talk. That's a clever title. Tell us about the podcast. How'd you come up with it?
So right before COVID hit, I was kind of in the space where I've been doing this for a while now. And I'm like, what is next in my world of forensic science? And I thought, what if I'm in the space to start teaching or just giving back to the forensic community, to new forensic specialists coming in? Like, what can I do for them? I thought, great. I'm going to start this whole public speaking sector. I'm going to get to conferences. And then boom, COVID hit and that all got shut down. So I'm like, okay, what else can I do? And I've always loved, I don't know if you've heard of The Moth on NPR radio. It's a storytelling hour. It happened every Sunday, and I imagine it still does. But it's just these wonderful stories from all different walks of life, and they're amazing. They would get me through my long drives home from like Southern California up to Northern California. And I thought, gosh, I would love to be on the NPR stage one day. I have no idea what I'd talk about, but I would love it. Fast forward to 2020, I'm like, this is my opportunity to indulge in this creative idea. So I thought, podcast, let's do a podcast. And the walls do talk, that just came from like, what's, crime and coffee. What can we talk about? But there's been so many crime scenes that I've been to where the walls, the blood spatter, the damage, the finger marks, they tell a story. The dirt on the walls, they have a story to tell. So that's where the walls do talk came from.
Yeah, I mean, I heard the saying, oh boy, if these walls could talk, and
Yeah.
if you could go backwards 30 minutes to
Right.
when the crime happened. Ooh.
Yeah.
But that's your job. So you've got to do
That's
that. You've got to use all the clues and tell us what happened the last 30 minutes.
Yes, definitely. So that's how it came about. And I've been running with it ever since. And I love it. I get to share the true crime stories, the places and the people I've met and what I've experienced with the rest of the world. So they kind of have a understanding what it's like to be a crime scene investigator.
Yeah, and your show is very well done, very professional. I mean, here I am yucking it up with you, and you are so measured, and you're talking in this way that we're all interested, and uh, very well done.
Thank you.
I just listened to the one about the sex toys I talked about,
Right.
and they show up at crime scenes. I mean, I've encountered them over my career too. It brings to mind about the hazards of exposure to hazmat situations. And what are your biggest concerns? We talked a little bit, before we started recording. I talked a little bit about one of my encounters, and then I talked about the coffee with the criminalist podcast show hosts who talked about how they do not test um, fecal matter at a crime scene. But
Right.
now it's anything goes, isn't it? And what are you doing to protect yourself?
Gosh, yeah. So, you know, over the years, it's become very evident, like bloodborne pathogens, things that are so minute that are getting into your eyes or that you're inhaling. And maybe when I was younger, I was less like, it doesn't matter. Or maybe now that I have children, like I'm more concerned about how I take care of myself and I don't want to transfer anything to anyone that I love. Right. And so, yeah, definitely. I've been into crime scenes where, oh man, we had one, it was a suspicious death. That's how it was being handled because you walk into the apartment and there was blood everywhere. I mean, from the floor to above, throughout the entire apartment. And our poor victim had incisions and stab wounds all over the upper part of their arms and legs. So we really didn't know what was going on. And I remember seeing this dark substance everywhere as well. And we thought, oh, it's probably this deep, dark, arterial bleed, coagulated blood. As we got closer and as the smell hit us, oh no, that was not blood. That was also feces. So now it was like, let me slowly step out of this apartment. I'm putting I'm putting my goggles on. I put a massa N95 and we put a Tyvek on. And unfortunately, it turned out that this was all self-inflicted. He was a severe alcoholic and had internal bleeding. And he was like at the end of his life where any fluid in the body was coming out. And so that was but he put it everywhere. So
Yeah.
stuff like that, you're just worried, like hepatitis, just you're dealing with feces and it's everywhere and flaking and um, so yeah, that's one, there's no like, I'm just gonna put some gloves on, I'll be fine. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I won't be wearing these shoes anymore either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we had this one really horrific multiple murder in a house where this guy, the suspect, thought he would cover his tracks and he used every chemical in the house to go over probably 4 or 5 rooms, including laundry detergent, dish soap,
Jeez.
cleaning fluids, gasoline, whatever he could. I'm wondering, in your situation, you walk in there and your homicide guys go, take it all. Um, and you know, you're trying to map out where you're taking everything from. There's a million probable pieces of evidence in there. What's
Right.
your approach?
Oh man. We've had those situations where it's overwhelming, it's an overload, and especially our detectives, they're thinking, oh, we did take, like you said, we need to take it all. We don't know what is what. I've had a scene like that, and you have to slow down, you have to be very methodical, and you have to compartmentalize.
Mhm.
Like physically, like quadrant off your area. And then you think, okay, it's a whole methodical process. Am I looking for DNA or am I going to look for fingerprints? I'm looking for trace. Am I looking for hairs, fibers from clothing? Am I looking for any shoe wear impressions? Once you identify, like, okay, they're obviously wearing gloves, we have video surveillance or we have glove marks, we're more than likely not going to get any fingerprints. Now that leaves it open for DNA. Was there blood? Was there any other blood, bodily fluid left behind? What looks disturbed? What did they touch? You have to really just observe each aspect of this crime scene. And then when it gets down to like very fine details such as fibers, blood, flaky blood, fibers from clothing, or maybe body hair from the head, pubic hair. It just depends. And then you're going all the way to the smallest level doing tape lifts. So it does look overwhelming at first, but once you slow it down and really think what's going to be the best evidence, what is going to tie your suspect to that scene, then that's how you work. And
Mhm.
sometimes they're great. Sometimes not much is left behind. Um, and you just have to, there's something there, you'll find it. You just got to take your time. I always think like Locard's principle of exchange. When you enter a room, you leave something behind. It's there. You may not see it, but you'll find it if you keep looking. And same thing, when you leave that crime scene, that suspect or that individual took something with them. So
Mhm.
You keep that in mind, those are words to live by.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, you've got the defense that are saying it's a rush to judgment. You only grabbed what you know the suspect took. And what about the other five guys or the different guys that were in there that probably did this
Right.
crime? And you're being criticized for not collecting enough.
Yeah, we've had that too. I remember very early on, I had a detective sit me down. He goes, "Look, you're going to get hammered when you're on the scene, or excuse me, when you're on the stand. They're going to ask, why didn't you do this? Or what about this? What if that?" And he just said, you could answer this way, especially if a jury's there. You say, okay, it could be possible, sure, but highly unlikely. Always enter. There's a million possibilities
Sure.
that the evidence could have arrived there, or this person could have left it, or it could have been a transfer, but highly unlikely. He's like, you're walking out and there's a thunderstorm. Are you gonna get struck by lightning? It's possible, highly unlikely. So paint that picture. And that's always stuck with me too, because if you get a good defense attorney, I mean, they can tie you into a hole and forget it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, and are there any situations where you've come across, I mean, I can recall situations where officers are called to a scene, they look for something, somebody, nobody's home, but there's trash, like a hoarder's house, and they look all over and leave. And 2 days later, somebody reports a smell and somebody's under all this garbage. You ever walk into a place and find something that's very pertinent to the crime that maybe others have overlooked?
Yes, I I would love to say I love our officers, I love patrol, but sometimes they're not focused on the small details that we're trained to look for,
Mm.
or the disturbances. So yes, it has happened, not to the degree that there was a body there, thank goodness. 'Cause I always feel bad. But, they've gone by and they're like, "Well, I didn't really see any point of entry at this house. They probably left the front door unlocked, or this is an inside job. I'm not sure that the victim's telling the truth." And so we later get a call because the victim will be like, "I found a crowbar underneath my sink in the bathroom. It does not belong to us." And so then we're then called out, and I'm like, "Okay, I found in the back yard, the screen had been ripped off the window, thrown over the neighbor's fence. I did take the time to look and see that there's finger marks and dust on the interior of that window. The pillowcase had been removed from the pillow where they stored all the goods. They took the victim's pillowcase. And yes, there was a
Mm.
crowbar as well as a black latex glove left under the piles and piles of clothing that was dumped at the door. So yes, we've had those instances where we're just trained to look for those small details. And whereas an officer has been like, there's nothing there, nothing to see.
Yeah, I mean, too. I mean, give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe it's a long shift, end of shift. Uh, yeah, I mean,
I get
so many
it.
reasons. Yeah, so many
Yeah,
reasons to
no,
make something. Yeah,
I get it. I love patrol. And I always think like I'm such a proponent. I come from the civilian side. I think every department should have its own crime scene unit. So we can just go in, patrol can go and meet with victims or suspects, canvas areas, get all that information and let us come and do all the dirty work and comb through all the evidence and or the scene. So I'm such a fan of like, I love patrol. We train them the best, but they want to go out there and patrol. Let crime scene come out and do crime scene.
yeah.
That's if
Here,
every department had a crime scene unit. So
right, right. Here, here. Okay, so tell us about something notable. I hate making light of some of these scenes where, especially when there's a dead body involved, because that means,
yeah,
they've got friends and family. But
yeah.
uh, walk us through a notable crime scene or two.
Okay. This one was kind of early on in my career. We had a guy that was beaten to death. Extremely, extremely, extremely. It was bad. They smashed his whole front of his head in, his arms, his hands, the skull, shoved in a trash can, and it was a body dump. We, after about a week or two, we were able to finally lock in the location of where we think the murder occurred. So a whole team of us get there. It's myself, a senior forensic specialist, a whole team of criminalists, as well as detectives, because the property that we were searching was huge. And I mean, it was a huge backyard, but it was like mini junkyard. They had boats and RVs and cars and crackheads living in boats that we discovered. It was bad. And so they said, all right, we're looking for blood and we're looking for tools that he may have been killed with. And I mean, there was probably thousands of tools and thousands of areas where this could have happened, literally. And so we're scouring through and we finally get to one area. We haven't found anything all day. This started early morning and now we're in the night. Didn't find anything. The criminalists were there. They're spraying their chemicals, the luminol. That's when that you get that beautiful blue color when there's blood that's been tried to hidden or washed away. So they're spraying their chemical. We're not finding anything. They're spraying their chemical. They're not finding anything. And I still remember the one criminalist down in Los Angeles. He's like, let's just try this one last area. We'll move it just a couple feet. This will be it. We'll call it a night. Well, he found that area because as soon as they sprayed it, it lit up like a Christmas tree. And everyone was like, 9 o'clock at night. Thank goodness. Well, I'm standing there, letting them do their test samples and document the area. I photographed it. We're getting ready to kind of pack up and leave. And it's dark. And I just turned and there's this boat, like a haul trailer next to me. So I'm looking at the area and then I look at this trailer and there's a big metal pipe near it. And I get my flashlight and on the metal of the frame, I see this tiny black dot. It looks like the size of a sesame seed. And I'm like, and it kind of has a shape to it, this teardrop shape. And I'm like, oh. So I call the criminalist over. I'm like, hey, come look at this. And he's like, what is it? I'm like, look at that little stain right there. And he's like, oh, come on. He's like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm like, no. I entertained your one more foot, entertain this drop. He's like, fine. So they swabbed a little portion of it, did a test sample with to see if it was blood. And it reacted bright pink on the cotton swab. So we were like, They took the rest of the sample. We're excited. We still don't know, but we're excited. They test the sample. 2 weeks later, it comes back. That was our victim's blood. So for me, they're like, you found it. You found the only drop of blood from our victim in that backyard. And I remember the sergeant of majors at the time calls me up and he's a very serious guy. Never really talked to us unless he needed to. The detectives talked to us and he's like, come to my office. I'm like, great. Like, I'm thinking, what the heck did I do? So I'm starting to sweat. I'm still a brand new crime scene investigator. And I get up there and he's like, sit down. I'm like, oh gosh. He's like, I just wanted to, we needed to talk about the swab that you collected. I was like, I'm thinking I messed up. He's like, I just wanted to say thank you so much. That's the only blood that we found from our victim tying him to that backyard. So great work. And I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. And that's it. He's like, that's all. You can leave. I was like, all right, thank you. But I walked out of there like, yes.
Yeah, nice.
So it was just one of those moments that one of the crime scenes is very brutal. Very long, and it was just like a needle in a haystack moment for me. So ever since then, I've been determined to always find blood at my crime scenes.
Yeah, well done. Good job.
Yeah, so that's definitely a memorable one.
Yeah, so what's the feedback been from the department? You get the green light on these? Is it is it a secret? Are they going to find out now?
Oh, they're gonna find out now. No, so yeah, you never really know, right? Going into this, I already knew I wanted to tell the stories, but I'm changing the dates, I'm changing the names, I'm changing the location. I'm very vague on that. And so I didn't tell them at first that I was going to do a podcast. And many of my stories didn't really come from my current department. And a lot of my stories came from cases that have already been adjudicated or never even went to trial. They're just very minuscule. And so we're slowly started getting out, and I would have like, you had a podcast? I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, oh, cool. And then one day the chief comes down, our former chief, and he goes, I heard you have something about talking walls on what do you do? I was like, I have a podcast. He's like, hey, I like it. Let me listen to it. And I was like, oh, go ahead. It's on, Spotify or whatnot. And that was it, And so the department has been absolutely amazing. I make sure I'm very respectful. I keep it, I don't talk about anything that's current or going on. It's more of just my past history. And anything that I have worked, no one would ever really know what I'm talking about unless they're the victim or a victim's family or a detective on scene. So I've
Hmm.
had some detectives reach out, like, I know exactly what scene you're talking about from 2012 or whatever. So the department itself has been very supportive. They always give me the green light. I've done some live shows as well, and they're like, go ahead. I asked for some pictures if I could print them out just to show audience. And I show them that it's respectful, it's clean, it's tasteful. They're just more intriguing. So they've given me the green light. They love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when are you going to break through the next wall? When are we going to see you on video?
So I need to get that going. I know people love, visual. So I think maybe after you've motivated me, I know that you do the YouTube as well. So that is going to be my next step in expanding this podcast. You won't only just hear my voice, but I'll get to give you some visuals as well. And
Nice.
hopefully I get to show some cool pictures and kind of take you through a story that way as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. A lot of my students, uh, gosh, used to be about 80% wanted to be sworn cops. And about 5 years ago, that changed, as you might imagine. And so many of them want to be forensic CSI people. And I don't know that they really grasp what you do besides what they see on some of the TV shows. So I think, showing your tools of the trade and showing some crime scenes, it might give them a better idea of what to expect rather than just going off this fantasy of what's on TV.
Exactly. I think that I think you're correct. The more exposure to the reality of it, I think it's great. I'm a huge proponent of interning. Like I interned and I knew like I want to do it. After I interned, I was like, I definitely want to do this. I've had interns where like, I want to get into crime scene and they do. And then they soon realize, maybe I don't want to see dead bodies all the time. That's not for me. And I think that's amazing because you find out like, it's not my cup of tea. You're teaching at the university, correct? In
San
criminal
Francisco
justice?
State.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I think that's another great, like you've obviously have years of experience. And so you're teaching curriculum, but you're also giving them like a real taste of what it was like to be in the sworn world.
Yeah, and I don't change the names or any of the situations. It's all real.
Yeah.
They're long gone, believe me.
Right. I'm like
But
in
no,
20 years. Yeah. 20 more years. I can give some goods.
yeah, well, I mean, my colleagues, honorable colleagues of mine are mostly PhDs, and a lot of times they'll talk about theory. And I think where I have the advantages of when we talk about things like, especially in use of force, and they talk about de-escalation and cops should de-escalate more. And I tell my students, cops have been de-escalating for 100 years, and
Yeah.
some are better at it than others. But I mean, you can't de-escalate when you're rolling around in the dirt with this guy. I mean, de-escalation's gone at that point. And I think some of my colleagues don't realize that, despite your best efforts, sometimes you're still going to get dirty and sometimes people are going to get hurt. So
Yeah.
there's that
I
aspect of
agree.
reality.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. Absolutely. That's why I'm such a fan. And they're developing a new 2-year program at Ventura College, and it's focused for crime scene investigators. And I think it's absolutely amazing. And I tell them, yes, get teachers in that want to do it. But if you could find someone that has the experience, the knowledge, the hands-on that can teach the kids or the students coming in, Um, that's going to be your best gift to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, thanks for taking time, Gabrielle Wimer, forensic specialist working for the City of Ventura. Love your show. The Walls Do Talk. It's a podcast, and we expect to see you in living color sometime soon.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. It was such a pleasure speaking with you and getting to know you and being on here. So thank you.
Yeah, well, we're going to keep track of you and have you back on the show, um, talk about some other things, and wish you well and continued success with your podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet. Hey, to our listeners, I hope you enjoyed Gabrielle and some of her stories about her forensic work. And drop me a line. Let me know. Drop me a line at policingmatters@policeone.com. And let me know what you think of the show. If you have any other questions, I can funnel them over there. And be sure and check out the Walls Do Talk podcast with Gabrielle Wimer. All right, stay safe, take good care. Thanks for listening or watching, and hope to talk to you again real soon.